Hello, everyone, and welcome to DataBank's CISO Corner, where we talk about all things data security and compliance. I'm Dane Dittamore with DataBank, and I'm joined by DataBank's very own CISO, Mark Houpt.
Top of the
Hey,
morning to you, Dane. It was, it was St. Patrick's Day the other day, so we got to pretend like we're Irish, even if we don't have any Irish. How's that?
well, I didn't show up on screen because I don't have any green. Um, so today is acceptable because I've got blue,
There
right?
you go.
Well, we have a sobering topic today. What happens when an organization's response to a cyber attack demands more than their current resources, right? More than what we've got, so to speak, right? In layman's terms.
Yeah, that is a sobering thing, and it's kind of glad we're talking about sobering here after St. Patrick's Day, just shortly thereafter. But this kind of thing happens all the time. Is these attacks happen, and we really need to take a step back and in what I call a debrief and look at what occurred there, so that we can really understand and protect us in the future.
Yeah, well, I figured you'd have some insight into this, as you do all things
Hmm.
security and compliance, right? So let's approach two aspects of the question. First, how does an IT leader determine what the appropriate response to an attack is? And then number two, what happens if that IT leader and or CISO, their current resources just aren't sufficient?
Yeah. Okay. So let's tackle these somewhat separately, but also somewhat together. So first of all, what is an appropriate response to an attack? First of all, let's take a look at it from a legal perspective. Appropriate response to an attack, and also regarding the resources aspect, kind of go together. The legal response to attack. First of all, you cannot do offensive security, even in response to an attack. The only people in the United States that are legally allowed to do an offensive security response to an attack is the Department of Defense, FBI, NSA, people like that. So, in other words, the federal government. So, anything beyond that becomes us actually breaking the law. So, in other words, when I say an offensive attack, what I'm talking about there is if I see somebody attacking me, and then in response, I'm going to attack them. I'm going to initiate a DDoS attack against them by hiring a bot or something like that. Or perhaps I start hacking their systems to teach them a lesson. That is illegal. So that should not be your response. That would not be an appropriate response. But beyond that, what an appropriate response is following your incident response plan. And if you have properly done your homework in advance, like here at DataBank, we've identified multiple types of responses to types of attacks. So we have a DDoS incident response plan. We have a ransomware incident response plan. And each one of those has a different playbook that goes with them. Now, that's the book answer to the question. The real answer to the question of what's an appropriate response, though, is, when you're in the middle of a fight, as anyone in the military knows, or perhaps even a civilian who's been in a car accident, you may prepare yourself for what would it be like to be in a car accident. You've gotten your insurance, you've listened to what your insurance agent has told you do in response to that. But when you actually have the accident, the adrenaline is flowing, the events are occurring that you cannot control. So, for example, you have an accident and the other individual gets out of their car and starts a fight with you instead of calmly approaches you and says, "Hey, are you okay?" There is a response that has to happen in the moment, if you will, of what's going on. And that's the same thing with a cyber attack. When a cyber attack is occurring, we have to defend our network. Again, defend, not offensive, but defensively. We have to defend our network best we know how. So the incident response playbook may say, for a ransomware, for example, is to pull the attacked computer off of the network, pull the power cord, pull it out, pull out the network cable in order to prevent it from going further. But in response to that, the attacker may say, well, great, I'm going after a different computer. And then you have a whole different level to deal with. So you really have to play the field, if you will. You have to understand what's going on. You can't just go always by the playbook. You have to be prepared for that. So, what are the resources that we have? Well, first of all, your incident response is a resource. the knowledge that you have, doing tabletop exercises and doing tabletop exercises that are real, where somebody throws in those challenging situations where someone is actually playing the role of the attacker and doesn't allow you in advance to know what he or she is going to do, and then they throw those twists into the process. That is how you plan for these kinds of things. Is you plan to succeed, because anytime that you fail to plan, you're going to, you might as well plan to fail.
Right. Well, I mean, essentially what I heard you say is preparedness, right? So
Yes.
have an incident response plan, be prepared, and do tabletop exercises and kind of throw some real world things in that. So in the moment, you essentially are prepared for at least most of the eventualities, so that
Right.
the adrenaline, as you say, or so and so on your team isn't available today,
Mhm.
they're sick, they're out, whatever that is, right?
Right.
Because these incidents can happen anytime. So it sounds like preparedness is a big deal. So
Exactly.
now, what happens? So you're prepared, and now there's an incident, and you need to respond, and you look back and you're like, hey, we do not have enough resources
Mhm.
to marshal to address this. What do you do?
Well, if you're preparing and you've tabletop that type of thing, you probably have an outside IT resource, such as maybe a forensics team or another security resource on retainer. That would be one thing that we could take a look at. But if you're in the moment, you're fighting a firefight and you don't have enough resources, then honestly, your team is going to have to step up to the plate, and you're going to have to bring other people in. So, for example, Dane, if we're in a really big firefight, I may bring you in to do nothing more than take notes of what's going on, or I may bring somebody else from your marketing team in to act as the communicator in the process. So that relieves me from having to do that. So I can then retrain my resources myself, for example, onto the fight itself. So there's different ways to address it, but one of the key ways there is being prepared and knowing what talent you have around you that could possibly jump in. So, here at DataBank, for example, our support teams are often our communicators, but I may bring in an absolute emergency, I may bring some of our more talented support folks in and say, look, I need you to do some very basic tasks. I need you to go to this server. I need you to log into this server, and I need you to turn on these resources, or things along those lines. So basically, when it's that type of scenario, it's all hands on deck. And when we're talking about all hands on deck, we're talking about everybody in the company. We're talking about any type of outside resources we could possibly bring in. Now, we've never had that type of situation, but I have been in one of those types of situations literally 22 years ago at a company I was at. And one of the resources we did is we decided, because it was a malicious software attack, a virus got into the company. We shut down the company for 2 days and got people out of the building. And that's back in the old days, when everybody came to work.
Right.
But we got everybody out of the building to get them out of our way. That was actually one of the things that we needed to do, is just get people out of our way. Everybody left their computers at work, and then we're talking a couple of thousand people, multiple sites. Got everybody out of the building, everybody out of the organization, allowed us to do our work to recover the environment, and then we said, "Hey, now you can come back to work." That was
Yeah.
a helpful situation.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Mark. This is really good stuff, and of course, gives me a couple of ideas for some things that we can do and topics that we can cover down the road. We really appreciate your insight as usual.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to join you.
Yep. Well, if you're listening, watching, obviously like us on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, make comments, and if click the little bell, right, if you'd like to be notified of future broadcasts. And you can also drop a note in our inbox at CISO@databank.com, CISO@databank.com. And that's a wrap for today. And as always, be safe and stay secure.